Okay, good evening. Welcome to the next class on Hilchos Shabbos, the laws of Shabbos. We're going to discuss tonight the laws of Rechitza, of washing oneself, to bathe, to shower, to use a mikvah, to wash your face, wash your hands. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? How is it allowed? When it is allowed? All these questions we'll try to cover tonight. So, washing ourselves, taking a bath, taking a shower, is not one of the 39 malachas, right? There's no category of malacha as washing, rechitza. It's not a malacha. There's no prohibition. There's no biblical prohibition, right? It's not, you're not cooking. We're not talking about heating the water. We're not talking about, anything. We're not talking about, using a soap bar. That might be a biblical issue. We're not talking about squeezing a sponge or a what's it called? What do they use? What's it called? They use to wash yourself.
Washcloth?
A washcloth or whatever. Something else I'm thinking of.
Scrunchy.
Scrunchy things, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about those. We're talking about the actual washing yourselves. So there's no biblical prohibition. However, the rabbis prohibited it. Why? Back in the day, when you would go to a bathhouse, a public bathhouse, so there was someone there who had to heat up the water. How do you heat up the water? You don't have automatic heaters. You don't have boilers. You had an actual furnace. You had to throw in some logs. You got to throw in some twigs. You got to throw in some wood to make the fire, or to make the fire stronger, to heat up the water, right? That's a real malacha, right? The real biblical prohibition to make a fire on Shabbos. That is the only way you're able to have warm or hot water. Obviously, that's prohibited on Shabbos. Now, obviously, you could heat up the water from before Shabbos, right? Go there Friday afternoon, make a fire that will last for a good few hours or even a full day. So you'll have hot water to wash yourself Shabbos morning. Obviously, you could do that. But because it wasn't so common, and because we were concerned that perhaps we may forget, and we may, if this becomes the common practice that everyone just, takes a shower Shabbos morning, people may heat up their water on Shabbos. Today we're living in the United States. We are what's it called? You have a lot of stuff.
Spoiled.
You're spoiled. Exactly. We are spoiled over here, right? You just go into the shower, you have hot water. I was visiting someone in Israel a few years ago, and he tells me, "Oh, you want to take a shower? Let me heat up the water." What are you talking about? Yeah, because in Israel, you have to heat up every condo, every apartment has to heat up the water a half hour before you go in there. They don't just have nonstop heated water enough for a shower. You want to wash your hands, you have enough hot water. You want to take a shower, you got to wait a half hour because you press, it's all it is, a press of a button, but up on top of the roof is heating the water, right? Meaning even today, in a lot of perhaps European countries, you still have to manually heat the water before you want to take a shower. So we could understand that on Shabbos, someone might say, "Hey, I want to take a shower." I'll just flip the switch without thinking twice because you want hot water. And for sure, back in the day when it was literally throwing in a log or throwing in wood into fire in order to heat up the water. And therefore, the sages, the rabbis, they came out with a decree, a gezerah, that no one should wash themselves with hot water on Shabbos. Okay? We'll get to cold water in a moment, but let's first talk about hot water. It is prohibited, it's a rabbinic prohibition to wash most of your body or your entire body with hot water on Shabbos. So no taking a bath, no taking a shower. It makes no difference if we're actually washing and like using soap or whatever, washing, or just being underwater. We're not allowed to wet most of our body with hot water on Shabbos. And this applies whether the water was heated on Shabbos, however it was done. Maybe a non-Jew heated the water for us, for himself, and we're using it. Maybe we had to heat water because there was an emergency, a medical emergency, so we had to heat water, and now we had some water left over. Or whatever it was, if we have hot water that was heated on Shabbos, but this even applies if the water was heated from before Shabbos, which is obviously much more common in our houses, right? You have a water boiler, you turn on the faucet. Water it's water that was heated from before Shabbos. Now we spoke already a few months ago that it's problematic to open the hot water on Shabbos, right? Because you're causing more water to boil. But maybe more practical application to this would be if I want to take a bath and I take water from my urn and I mix it with cold water from the faucet and I have a warm bath, right? Or for a child, you want to heat up the water, you pour from your urn into the bathtub. So you warm up water, and you want to take a warm bath on Shabbos. So you're not cooking water on Shabbos, so there's no issue with actually heating up the water. The water was already heated from before Shabbos. I just want to bathe, I want to wash myself with warm water on Shabbos. So the rabbis tell us it is prohibited to wash our entire body or roiv gufay, or most of our body. What is permissible is to wash our face, our hands, and our feet. And by extension of that, we say as long as it's just some parts of our body, some limbs of our body, but not most of our body. If we're only washing 49% or less of our body, then we are allowed to wash it even in warm water. Okay, so again, the prohibition of washing ourselves on Shabbos is to use any warm water, even water that was preheated, to wash 51% of our body or more. So if we're washing most of our body, it's not allowed. If I got to wash my face and I need some warm water to wash my face, and I want to take some warm water from the urn and wash my face with it, mix it with cold water and wash my face, that's allowed. If I want to wash my hand, I want to wash my feet, or even I want to wash one part of my body with warm water, that is allowed. To wash most of our body, it's called in Hebrew, roiv gufay. Roiv means most, the majority. The majority of my body, that is prohibited. Even though today we're not in bathhouses, we're doing this at home, and we're not heating up water for this, right? Maybe the reasons for this initial enactment, this initial decree of the rabbis does not apply today. Nevertheless, the actual law still applies just as it did then, and we are not allowed to wash our bodies on Shabbos. Now, let's talk briefly about washing with cold water, right? I want to take a cold shower or a cold bath, right? Perhaps it's August in New Orleans and I walked 2 miles from shul and I'm sweating buckets and I come home and I say, you know what? Let me jump into a cold shower. I don't mind a cold shower. It's refreshing at this moment, right? Or perhaps even a cold bath. Is that allowed? So here, the Shulchan Aruch tells us as follows. The Shulchan Aruch says that the custom was already accepted in the Western countries. This is what the Shulchan Aruch says: not to bathe, not to wash ourselves on Shabbos at all, even not with cold water, even though there is no prohibition in the letter of the law. Which means the initial prohibition of washing did not include cold water. Cold water was from the get-go always allowed. You're allowed to wash your entire body in cold water. Nevertheless, it was an accepted custom not to wash ourselves, not to bathe in cold water. Because it was an accepted custom, we say Minhag Yisrael Toirahi, a custom of Jewish people has the strength of Torah. And today, many contemporary rabbis will tell you it is prohibited to wash yourselves in cold water. Again, if it's 49% or less, if your hand, your foot, one part of your body you wanted to wash, that is allowed. But if it's most of your body at once, that is not allowed, even using cold water. Now, what happens if someone's extremely uncomfortable and they really have to wash themselves? They feel either they're dirty, or they feel they're sweaty and they're really uncomfortable. Perhaps they have to entertain guests. Maybe they're going to an event, or they're going to the shul, and you're really uncomfortable being around people. Whatever it is, you really feel like it's either for yourselves or for others. Whatever it is, the expression used in Shulchan Aruch is mitztaer. Mitztaer means you're pained. You're pained by not washing yourselves. And again, this is very subjective. What does it mean you're pained? Well, someone might be pained when they have a little sweat, and some people might be pained only if it's really, really bad, right? Every person is different. But whatever it is, a person's extremely uncomfortable, and they feel like they have to wash themselves, take a shower, take a bath, whatever it is, right? So here we say, if you want to use cold water, that's the best thing to do. If you really want to take a shower, because this wasn't included in the initial enactment of the prohibition of washing yourselves, so take a cold shower. If you feel you really have to take a cold shower, take a cold bath. Again, if washing 49% of your body isn't enough, if that won't suffice, meaning if you say, you know what, you feel uncomfortable, wash part of your body, fine. But if you feel you have to wash your entire body, then use cold water. Oh, Yishai, how are you? Welcome. I'm talking about the halachis of washing yourself. Rechitza. It's Shin Chavav.
Shin Chavav?
In the Alter Rebbe, yeah. But we're throwing in from other parts of Shulchan Aruch as well. Like usual, I'm following Rabbi Farkash's Sefer. This is the third volume. He has a whole chapter just on Rechitza, on washing yourselves. So we're talking. I'm recording this, Yisha, so you can watch the first 20 minutes or so. But just where we're now, we're talking about the prohibition of washing yourself, which is a midrabanan. It's a rabbinic prohibition. Initially, it only included washing yourself in warm or hot water. However, it was an accepted minhag also not to wash yourselves, not to bathe in cold water. Now, someone is an istanis, someone who really is feeling uncomfortable, and really feels that just washing part of their body, their hands, feet, and face, or just certain limbs of the body is not going to be enough. They really have to wash roiv gufay, most of their body or their entire body. So then we say, try to, if you want to wash in cold water, then that is allowed. If it's too hard, I can't get into a cold shower. I can't get into the cold shower. I need a warm shower, and I maybe not a warm shower, but I need a warm bath, right? I have a large urn. I have a large pot of water on the stove, and I'm going to pour it into my bath. I'll warm it up, and I'll be able to at least have a warm bath on Shabbos, right? Even not with soap necessarily, even just to kind of freshen up a little bit, so I could go to shul. I can hang around other people, right? And my child's bar mitzvah, and I'm walking 2 miles, and it's August. It's very hot. I need to freshen up, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it's subjective. Everyone could decide on their own if they are uncomfortable. If they are truly, truly uncomfortable, so there is a great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Akiva Eger. I think he lived about 100, maybe about 200 years ago, and he was a brilliant mind. And he is the one who came up with this. He learned this from a law, whatever. It's like a whole interesting way how he derived this. But he felt that if someone's extremely uncomfortable, they would be allowed to wash themselves, even roiv gufa, even the majority of their body at once, with warm water that was preheated before Shabbos.
That was preheated before Shabbos.
Well, on Shabbos itself,
Isn't it?
water that was heated on Shabbos, even if it was heated in a way that was allowed, we don't use that at all on Shabbos. Even to wash our hands or our face, or even just to wash one limb, we don't use that. But if we want to use water that was preheated from before Shabbos, generally you're allowed to wash up to 49% of your body, right? Just part of your body is allowed. If you're mitzvah and using cold water is not gonna do it, then there is place, there is what to rely on. It's definitely not lechatchila. It's not that it's not the best thing to do. But if you really need to, there's room to be lenient and to allow washing even with warm water on Shabbos most of your body. Dave, you had a question?
I have a question of clarification.
Yeah.
I have a question of clarification. You say water that's been preheated before Shabbos. Can this be water that's in a urn that's being continually heated but started before Shabbos and on a black
Yeah. Well, anytime
Okay.
meaning we spoke about the laws of preheating food before Shabbos. So if it's done, that's allowed. If it's on an urn or if it's on a blech, then that it would be allowed. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure.
Like I mentioned, the initial decree why it was prohibited was because we did not want people to heat up water on Shabbos for this. So that's why even when it's allowed, we don't use the water that was heated on Shabbos. We use water that was preheated, even though it's continuously being heated now. But it was put on the fire before Shabbos. Now, just to throw in, Yishai?
Do you have the simon that Rebbe Kiva Eger says that on? I mean, if it's not in front of you, don't worry. But I'm just curious.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not a big Baki Rebbe Kiva Eger. I'm telling you what Rabbi Farkash brings in the Sefer. It's in Shin Chavav. Shin Chavav. Cotton Aleph. The Kiva Eger has on the Shulchan Aruch. So in this first note he derives this from a halacha from a halacha in Shin Zayin. Over there it talks about that you're allowed to ask a non-Jew to carry water to use to wash someone who is in pain. And the way he learns there that it's talking about hot water. And he learns from here that if someone's in pain, you're allowed to use the hot water to wash your body. And for whatever reason, he understands it to mean not just part of your body, but your entire body.
Okay.
I'm mentioning Rabbi Kiva Eger just because it's not something which is like accepted that straight from the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch actually does not mention any leniency with using hot water on Shabbos. Rabbi Kiva Eger, he writes that perhaps someone who's mitzvah, there's a room to be lenient and allow them to wash with hot water. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a lechatchila. It's definitely better not to do it. Listen, if someone is at a state where they feel like they can't go on, it's really uncomfortable for them. So then, they could be lenient. There's definitely room to be lenient. Rabbi Kiva Eger is definitely someone who we can rely on. He's not a Johnny come lately. Okay. Now, just to throw in a little bit about Yom Tov, even though we're focusing here on Shabbos, but when it comes to showering and all like this, Yom Tov always comes up because Yom Tov often is a 2-day holiday, right? Shabbos, okay, you shower before, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, in the summer, you could shower at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And then, you go, you skip the morning, right? And the next night you can shower again. But Yom Tov could be it's 2 days, right? Pesach, Shavuos, right? Generally it's a 2-day holiday. It's right, 2 days without a shower. Oh, okay. And sometimes you can have 3 days if you have like this Pesach coming up, right? When's the first day of Pesach? Saturday night, Sunday, right? So you have Shabbos, you can shower Sunday and Monday. So we're talking about starting Friday, taking a shower Friday afternoon, Friday, late evening, early evening, and going all the way to Monday night, right? or so sometimes it's 3 days. So definitely in places like in New Orleans or in the summer, Rosh Hashanah, people are always asking, "Could I shower?" Or Shavuos, right? Shavuos is right at the heat of the winter, and sometimes it can be 3 days. So are you allowed to shower? And seemingly on Yom Tov, you can say, "Listen, on Yom Tov, you're allowed to use a fire, right? An existing flame. You're allowed to heat up food on Shabbos on Yom Tov, right? So perhaps you should be allowed to use even hot water on Yom Tov to shower on Yom Tov." So just to make one clarification, the laws of washing on Yom Tov are actually generally very similar to the laws of washing on Shabbos. Because on Shabbos, you also could use preheated hot water, right? The issue of washing on Shabbos isn't only because you can't get hot water, right? Because even if you have an urn, you have preheated hot water, you're still not allowed to use it to wash most of your body, right? You can't take a bath, and you can't take a hot bath from water, using water from the urn on Shabbos, right? Even though it was heated up halachically, right? So on Yom Tov, the same thing applies. Even taking a shower, if you don't have an electric, a tankless water tank, whatever it's called, right? But if you even have a water tank with a boiler where on Yom Tov it's allowed to be used, right? There's no electricity, right? You're allowed to use the hot water on Yom Tov, but there still is that same enactment from the rabbis not to wash our entire body or most of our body on Yom Tov. So therefore, on Yom Tov, the same thing would apply. It is prohibited to take a shower on Yom Tov, the same way it is prohibited to take a shower on Shabbos. Now, if you remember, on Shabbos, even a cold shower, we say you're not allowed to, right? Again, nothing to do with heating up water. Even a cold shower, l'chatchila, we don't do. So same thing applies on Shabbos, even a hot shower. Same thing applies on Yom Tov. We don't take a hot shower on Yom Tov. Now, if you remember, we said in regards to Shabbos that someone who is mitzta'er, someone who's very uncomfortable, is allowed to take a cold shower. And if a cold shower doesn't work, then if you have preheated water, you could take also a hot bath. So the same thing applies to Yom Tov. If someone's very uncomfortable on Yom Tov, there is definitely room to allow them to take a hot shower on Yom Tov. Someone said, "Listen, it's a 3-day Yom Tov. It's already day 2, and I can't go another 24 hours this way. I need to wash myself." So there we say, if you're able to wash less than the full 49% or less of your body, then that's better. But even if you have to wash your entire body, again, if you feel that you really cannot continue this way, you have to wash yourself, there is definitely room to allow this. There are many rabbis that I know who do wash, take showers on Yom Tov. Again, it's their decision. It's a subjective feeling. If they feel that very uncomfortable, you are allowed to wash on Yom Tov, take a shower. Any questions? Okay. Let's move on a little bit in these laws of washing. Another question that comes up in regards to washing oneself on Yom Tov or Shabbos, we'll go back to Shabbos over here, is using a mikvah. Using a mikvah, you're immersing your entire body in water. Are you allowed to use a mikvah on Shabbos? The answer is yes. When we use the mikvah, the reason why we're using a mikvah is not to wash ourselves, right? Physically, we're cleansing ourselves spiritually. Whether it is a woman using a mikvah, whether it is a man using a mikvah, either one is allowed, because the purpose over here is not for Rechitza, it's not for washing ourselves, but it's for purification, and therefore spiritual cleansing, and therefore we are allowed to use the mikvah on Shabbos. There is a controversy whether one is allowed to use a hot mikvah on Shabbos, or is it better to use a cold mikvah on Shabbos? And there's definitely reasons to say that you should use only a cold. However, it is already an accepted custom and a halacha that we do allow hot mikvahs on Shabbos. Therefore, you go to many communities, you'll have a nice hot mikvah on Shabbos. You are are allowed to use a hot mikvah on Shabbos. However, it's important to note that this is the purpose of the mikvah is to go in to toivel, to dunk and to purify oneself in the mikvah, but it's not a time to enjoy the sauna, to enjoy the hot water, because that's really enjoying the water, and therefore that would be prohibited. So using a mikvah for purification is allowed. Rabbi Avram, good to see you. Avram, you hear us? We see you. Avram, we hear you, I think also, yeah? We hear you, Avram? Oh. Avram.
Hello.
Yeah, shalom.
Alaikum shalom.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
This is being recorded, so I'll send you the recording. I'll post the recording afterwards. Oh, what happened to you, Shai? I'll post the recording afterwards, so you'll have the first half of the class. We're talking about washing on Shabbos, the rabbinic prohibition that even though biblically there's no malacha of washing on Shabbos, nevertheless, because we are afraid that maybe someone's going to heat up water on Shabbos, we do not wash ourselves on Shabbos, whether it is hot water that was preheated before Shabbos, or even cold water we don't use to wash the majority of our body at once. So if we want to wash just one limb or one part of our body, it's allowed, but if we don't wash the majority of the body, and we're talking about different times when it is allowed and it's not allowed. So we could, so that you could go back and watch the first half of the class. We just mentioned mikvah. We said mikvah is allowed because mikvah is not there to wash ourselves physically. It's there to wash ourselves spiritually. So that is allowed. Something else that comes to mind is, what about swimming on Shabbos? Are we allowed to swim on Shabbos? Go into a pool. So if it's a cold pool, for sure, you seemingly should be. We're not going into the pool to what's it called? To wash ourselves, right? We're going to the pool because we're going for the entertainment, right? Just sitting around in the pool. So I think the main issue with swimming on Shabbos is not so much the actual going into the water. The issue is with our bathing suits, because you're not allowed to, deliberately get a clothing wet, because especially if you're wearing it, because anytime you touch a soaked cloth, you are squeezing water out. There's no way of it. There's no two ways about it, right? You can't pick up a cloth and not squeeze. If it's soaked with water, you can't squeeze it out. So then you might say, I can get nylon, I can get certain materials that don't absorb. It gets complicated. So that's one of the main reasons why we try to refrain from swimming on Shabbos. What about going into a lake, right? On Shabbos. Some people, perhaps many, I have personal stories where you go to a place where there's no mikvah, and what do you use for a mikvah? You go to a lake, find a private area, you go to a lake for a mikvah, right? Is that allowed? So the answer is yes, it is allowed. You're allowed to bathe yourself or wash yourself in a lake. You use a mikvah in a lake. The issue is, there are many issues besides the issue of wearing bathing suits and all that. The issue is also an issue of carrying. We didn't speak about the laws of carrying on Shabbos. Perhaps we'll get to it one day. But one of the issues of carrying is, if you have a lot of water on you, you can't carry that water, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're bathing in the lake, you get up and you start walking, you're carrying all that water that's in your hair, it's on your body, right? So that's the problem. So if you have to, the best thing to do actually is to, let's say you go into a mikveh, you dunk in the lake, you get up and you actually kind of you get all the water off you as much as possible, right? So there's no and then you walk a few feet, and then again. So like this, you're not carrying water, and then before you actually leave the lake, you actually get your towel and you dry yourself before you walk out of the lake. So there's no issue with with carrying. So it can get complicated if there are any like leaves or anything on top of the water and you kind of move it. That might be an issue because you also you're moving something on Shabbos out, in a public domain. So it's very complicated. It's not recommended. If it has to be done, it could be done if you keep in mind all these things to take, make sure all these things that you're doing in a way that is not, you're not breaking any laws on Shabbos.
Question on drying yourself.
Oh,
Is there any concern, like special concerns when drying your hair or beard or anything with a towel or
yes.
even with your hands?
Yes. Before we get to drying, there's one thing. If someone is taking a shower, like we said, someone who is really uncomfortable is taking a shower, a cold shower, even a warm shower, a warm bath, whatever it is, right? In regards to using soap, we spoke last time, 2 weeks ago, about using soap. That it is allowed if the intention is not for the scent, but it's just to cleanse oneself. We don't use a soap bar on Shabbos, but we do use a liquidy type of soap. That is something that we do use, but we don't use any sponge or any washcloth. We do not use those on Shabbos. Now, when it comes to the hair, we have to be careful I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago when we spoke about squeezing water out of something or juice out of something. If you have a beard or have a hair, you have to be careful not to squeeze the water out of it. So if you if it's saturated with water, you have to be very careful not to squeeze it and not to get the water out.
So using a towel like this on your hair or on your face, that's fine.
You have to do it very gently, in a way that you're not squeezing the water. You can dry the water out of it. You can place the towel gently around, but do it gently in a way that you're not squeezing the water out of it. You also want to make sure that the towel doesn't get too wet. Because if you are using a towel that gets really wet, again, then you're squeezing the towel. So you have to make sure that the towel stays mostly dry, right? In a way that you can't squeeze any water out of it, right? If it's a towel that you are very, concerned, you're makpid, that makes sure that if it gets a little wet, you already start to hang it up somewhere, right? You have to be careful that it's a towel that you don't mind using and getting wet, right? Because one of the things you're not allowed to do is you're not allowed to hang up a wet clothing on Shabbos to dry. You're not allowed to hang up wet laundry on Shabbos. Someone may think that, you probably washed it on Shabbos. So the towel that you use, you can hang it up on a hook. You could put it somewhere, right? You don't have to put it, but you don't spread it out. You don't put it let me spread it nicely on this bar so it's going to dry, right? Don't hang it in a way where it's this is the way I hang it when I want it to dry. You can put it on the hook, right? It's going to dry on the hook also, but it's not spread out, right? Don't put it in a way where this is the way we spread it out when we want it to dry. So that's something that we should keep in mind.
What if it's in a place?
Yeah.
What if it's in a place where there's no chash of marasayan?
It makes a difference. I don't think it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's for yourself.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, if you have a warm place already, it's something like a warm area, you don't put the towel near that place again where it's going to dry faster.
Wow.
So we don't do that either. So again, when you dry yourselves, be careful we don't squeeze, but we dry our body. When it comes to any hair that has a lot of water, we got to be careful not to squeeze the water out of that out of the hair. In general, when it comes to hair or the beard, we have to be careful on Shabbos. Not to pull any hairs out. There are some great rabbis who would never stroke their beard on Shabbos, even lightly, because they put their hand in their beard and then you take it out, you have some hairs come out, right? Or in your hair as well, which is prohibited. Now, it's obviously allowed because most time when you stroke your beard, you don't have hairs come out. But if you know that anytime you touch your hair, some hairs fall out, You should not touch your hair on Shabbos because you're causing hair to detach from their source, which is a prohibition on Shabbos. When it comes to like brushing your hair or combing your hair or combing your beard, the same thing applies. If you're using a brush or a comb that generally pulls hair out, you should not be using that on Shabbos. If you have, I mean, everyone knows their own hair. If you're using a brush or a comb where generally it does not pull hair out, then it's allowed, and that would be allowed. You're allowed to use a ponytail on Shabbos. You're allowed to, make your hair on Shabbos. However, it should be in a way, obviously not making any knots, whatever type of bow we're using, but also not to pull any hair out. That's something important. For those people who roll up their beard, it is allowed. You are allowed to roll up your beard on Shabbos. However, again, make sure that if your hair is wet, maybe you should wait because you might be squeezing the water out of the beard, and also do it in a way where there's no what's it called? There's no pulling any hair out, etc. So you got to be careful with that. I think that's pretty much it on this sugya. Yeah, that is pretty much it in regards to washing and in regards to drying ourselves, the hair, etc. Yeah, if you have any questions, even next week, God willing, we'll continue with more of Hilchos Shabbos.
What about wet wipes? Like if you want to kind of rinse yourself off.
In fact, I think next week we'll actually discuss the laws of Purim. So we're getting close to we'll have 2 Mondays right before Purim, right? We'll have 2 Mondays, right?
Yeah, two.
Yeah, so maybe next week, and we'll see. Maybe we'll see if we'll do 1 week or 2 weeks.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, Avra, what was the question?
What about wet wipes, like on Shabbos?
Using wet wipes on Shabbos. So, good question. If you're able to avoid it, better to avoid it because of squeezing. If you have to use it, then it really depends on how wet it is. Sometimes it's just a little damp, right? Maybe something that's top of the pack, maybe different companies. If it's just a little damp, it could be used. If it's saturated with, if it's really wet and you touch it, you feel water coming out, it's an issue. It's problematic.
Question.
What?
I mean, I may be mistaken, but I remember hearing that squeezing on Shabbos only applies to something that's made of cloth, not like paper or like a paper towel or tissue.
Paper towel is cloth.
No, I mean like cloth. I mean like clothing cloth.
No, let me know. I'm not sure about that.
Okay, fair enough.
You said even here, it applies to here, it applies to food, it applies to
everything.
Yeah.
See. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Question about Pesach.
Oh boy.
Real quick one, because we were talking about earlier.
Question on Pesach.
Your barbecue pit. Would you need to have one strictly for Pesach, practically speaking, or could you use? Is it practical to kosher it for Pesach like a one that you use all year long?
Meaning you don't need one, especially for Pesach. The issue is how well are you able to clean it? Meaning barbecue pits are pretty dirty.
Right. So I mean, would it be enough to start up a fire by itself and let it roar with the lid closed? And
I don't know. I mean, I have to see that. If it was mine and I had to use it, I would buy just a separate one for Pesach. But if I had to kosher mine, I would scrub it down. I mean, I'm not sure. I would. You could buy a barbecue pit now just for Pesach.
That's what I need.
$30-$40, right?
Yeah.
But-
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I'm saying, if I had to use the same one, I would scrub it down, to spotless, and then I'll kosher it, and then I'll use it. But saying it's not like a major investment, so I would recommend, if you do want to have a barbecue pit for Pesach, to just buy one for Pesach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, halachically, it could be kosher. It's just unless it's worth the time
Yeah.
to scrub it down that way.
But well, okay. So that leads to quick other. Hopefully, it's quick. But preparing the one that you use all year round to be okay, like would it just be like to not have chametz in your possession, and whatever? Would it be enough to just close the lid on it and put it somewhere where you don't see it? Like what would you do for your barbecue pit that you use all year round? Is what I'm asking, I guess.
I would so what we do is, and we'll talk about it hopefully before Pesach, is that we sell all our utensils or all our dishes that we use for chametz during the year. We sell them to a non-Jew on Pesach.
Right.
So if I had a barbecue pit, that would be included in the sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Take care, guys, and
Thank you.
see you.
Thank you.